It's a pleasure to introduce Tiffany this morning. She had reached out to us last spring, and we started communicating and figured out that September the 22nd would work for her as well as for us. And as I mentioned earlier, she is an intern minister, not interim, but intern. And it's easy to confuse those things. Also, she is in preliminary fellowship, and she'll be telling you, I'm sure, what that is, and will be officially ordained as a UU minister on October the 12th at her home church in Florida. And she is currently working as a hospital chaplain. Tiffany, it's wonderful to have you here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me today. You all are a lot like my home church in Panama City, Florida. We have been a lay-led congregation ever since I started going there 13 years ago. And they are the ones who nurtured me into the point where I decided that ordained ministry was the direction I wanted to go to. At the time that we were talking about me coming here and doing this, I was the intern at Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, but that internship ended in May, and I'm now a hospital chaplain at Johnson City Medical Center, where I am learning a lot about life and death and human nature. Like you said, I'm in preliminary fellowship, which means that all the muckety-mucks at the UUA have decided that they want to sign off on my education and my ministry. And so that was the big step. The smaller step now is the celebration of ordination. And I'm going back to my home church in Florida to do that. So that's just a little bit about me. Thank you for having me today. It is good to be here with you all. You know, you all are here because you've chosen to be here. No one's going to send you to hell for not being here today. And I think it's a really special thing when people without coercion decide to gather together like this on a Sunday morning. Because there really are a million other things going on that you could be spending your attention on. And yet sometimes when we're in this space, those million little things have their way of creeping in to our minds anyway. We can get distracted by the past, by the future. Sometimes it's hard to fully engage with the gifts that the present moment has to offer us. There's research out there that says that the human attention span has now shrunk to the point that it is equal to that of a goldfish. And that means I lost you about 20 seconds ago. Now, I don't know if that's fair. There's other research out there that says that humans can pay attention just fine when they've decided that the thing is worth paying attention to. So it's just my hope and prayer today that you've decided that this is worth paying attention to. So that means that we can, when we choose, stay present together, but that it may take some intention to do so. And it is good to be in this present moment together where we share this space, where we share commitment to supporting each other through life, and we share a commitment to our common principles and making the world a better place. The wise old turtle, Master Oogway, in one of my favorite children's movies, Kung Fu Panda, said, "Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift," which is why we call it the present. But what is this gift that the present moment gives us? I think there are three gifts: peace, pleasure, and power. Peace seems like it's in short supply nowadays. From international turmoil to those million little personal concerns, we don't have to try very hard to find something to worry about. Worries and stress are a fact of life, but sometimes they get exacerbated when we are too focused on the future rather than the present. In fact, I have been feeling the stress of the future pretty acutely since I've begun this hospital chaplain residency. It seems like there's always so much to do. And so I play this little game with myself, and it probably sounds familiar to some of you. As soon as I get my end of unit evaluation done, I can relax. But then it's done, and I say, as soon as I get my prayer written for Peace Day, I can relax. But then after that, it's as soon as I get that laundry done, I can relax. And then maybe it's as soon as I get this sermon written and delivered, I can relax. Now tell me, do you really think I'm going to relax after this morning? My daughter has a birthday party to go to this afternoon, and the house really is still a mess. It can be never ending. That I can relax part will never come until I make it a priority. This future orientation can drain us, but at any time I can choose to trust myself to handle the future when it gets here and instead enjoy the present as the gift that it is. Philosopher Alan Watts argues that both the past and the future are illusions, and that we burn up so much of our mental and emotional energy on them. We worry about the future, we feel bad about the past, we stay stuck in our head instead of turning our attention to the present and living our lives to the fullest. But there is peace right here, right now. If we drop all our stories and the past and the future and just appreciate what is in front of us with a sense of mindfulness. Those deep breaths invite us to connect with the present. There is peace right here, right now. When you take that deep breath, you can pay attention to what the breath feels like. Air entering your nose or your mouth, your abdomen expanding, and then you can let it out. Completely releasing all that extra stuff that is cluttering your brain right now, at least for a moment. Focusing on the here and now, you can see if you can touch that peace that is available in the quiet with your community. This is peace. This is the gift of the present moment. In her book, Comfortable with Uncertainty, Buddhist nun Pema Chodron tells us a story about finding peace in the present moment. Once there was a woman who was running for her life. She was being pursued by tigers. They chased her to the edge of a cliff, and they were still coming. Frantically, she looks around, and she sees a vine going off over the edge of the cliff. And so with the tigers coming, she decides she has no choice but to climb onto that vine and start lowering herself down. She's about halfway down the vine when she looks below her, and there's water as far as the eye can see, and she sees crocodiles in that water. She looks above, the tigers are there. She looks below, the crocodiles are there. And then she starts hearing a little gnawing sound. And she looks at that vine, and there's a little mouse chewing on the vine that is supporting her. She knows that she can't get to the mouse before he chews through the vine. And so she's just there, suspended between these two bad outcomes. She looks down at the crocodiles, she looks up at the tigers, she sees the mouse chewing the vine, and then she looks at the portion of the cliff that is right in front of her face. And right there, a strawberry is growing. And it is the reddest, ripest strawberry that she has ever seen. And so she plucks that strawberry, pops it in her mouth, closes her eyes, and savors its juicy sweetness. The woman in our story is running from suffering and death as hard as she can. She cannot escape death. None of us can. But she chooses to be fully present with the strawberry and to find full enjoyment from it. And in that moment with the strawberry, she does escape the suffering, at least for a moment. In the present moment, there's peace and there's pleasure. Now, that's all well and good for an allegory, but I don't think I'm ever personally going to be so zen-like that I could fully engage the strawberry right before I plummet to my death. So, what does it look like in real life? Well, the other day I was rushing around to get things done before I left for work, listening to an audiobook as I did the dishes, not really seeing what I was doing, but engrossed in my story. When I pulled the garbage out of the can to take it to the dumpster, I was ready to just get these chores done with and get on with my day. But then I opened the door, and everything changed. The parking lot of the apartment where we live was shrouded in fog, and for a moment I felt like I was up in the misty mountains. Our dumpster is on the edge of the apartment complex, and it overlooks a pond and a cow field. And as I tossed the bag into the dumpster, I could hear the beauty of the moment calling me. I turned off my book, and I stood on the edge of the high hill overlooking the pond, and a million morning bugs and a handful of peeping frogs greeted me in a symphony that rose and fell in intricate harmonies. A bird called out, making its own part in the song. Mist danced over the pond, wildflowers slowly opened up, and humidity played on the hairs of my arm. And I breathed deeply, in and out, and was renewed for a moment. And the world was bigger and yet more intimate than it had been just moments before. The sacredness of life and living met me that morning because I heeded the invitation of that day, shut down my distractions, and just appreciated the world around me. And it was a pleasure. Often, all we have to do to enjoy the moment fully is to turn our attention to it, experience it with our senses, and be grateful for it. But what about those times when the present moment isn't a pleasure? When you're in the midst of an argument or you're in physical pain? A good midwife will tell a woman in labor to breathe into the pain rather than trying to fight it. When you're in an unpleasant moment, resisting it seems to actually prolong the suffering. Embracing it is the only way through. The midwife will tell you as you're breathing to imagine sending the breath to where it hurts the most. Our tendency is to resist pain, but when we breathe into it like this, we are accepting it rather than fighting it. The tension and pain will often loosen up, even just a little. Staying as relaxed as possible in the present, just keep breathing, trusting the process. The unpleasantness is still there. It doesn't magically go away, but it is easier to face. It hurts, but not any more than it has to. Our own resistance brings additional pain, whether it's in childbirth or in life. The fear is gone when acceptance lets the difficult present moment in. Accepting the moment helps us to experience it and then let it go. So the present moment often brings peace and pleasure, But when it's not pleasurable, a commitment to staying present can help us connect with our inner peace even when it's hard. And that is often the best way to get back to enjoyment as soon as we can. So these are inner practices for inner well-being. But we wouldn't be good Unitarian Universalists or fully engaged human beings if we stopped there. Our principles call us to build a world community with peace, justice, and equity for all. If our present moments are always simply about mystical sunrises or sinking into a game with our kids, then we're only halfway there. In the present moment, we are also called to find our power and use it to make a difference in the world. Your point of power in this world is this present moment right now. We can't do anything about the past and all of those coulda, woulda, shouldas. Even 2 minutes ago, we can't change. And we can't do much about the future. Sure, we plan. Sure, I sat down and wrote a sermon. But the only way to enact the plans is when it becomes present. You have to act on the world now, in the present. I was doing some de-escalation training one day when I learned how essential being in the present moment can be in doing justice work. De-escalation is a method of connecting with a person or a situation that has the potential to get dangerous and then reducing the intensity of the situation, often through your calming, non-anxious presence. And the trainer shared that step 1 of de-escalation is to be present, to pay attention to the world around you before a crisis situation has even presented itself. She said that when you're in a public place, if you're on your phone or buried in a book, then you're not really present with your environment. So if someone starts acting strangely or in potentially harmful ways, you won't even notice all the warning signs that you're headed there. You won't notice till it's already out of hand. Being present, you can see what's going on and then add your calming, non-anxious influence to the situation sooner. It's easier to stop a stone from rolling downhill when it's just starting to slip off of its resting place rather than trying to push it back up the hill after it's rolled halfway down. Being present can help us catch a problem before it really becomes a problem. No matter what challenge you're facing, from a belligerent coworker to a grieving child, it is by staying engaged that we will see the best way to move forward and make a positive impact. I have a friend, a chaplain friend at the hospital, who's really good at listening to people and supporting them. And when I asked him how he does it, he also credits the present moment as his greatest tool to having a positive impact on that person. He says that when he enters into that listening space with another person, he gives the moment away, meaning that he has surrendered his time to just be with that other person. That is another powerful way that we can make a difference in a world where people are so disconnected, to seek connection and give our time to someone who needs to be heard. Ultimately, connecting to the present moment is a practice. Believing in the present moment doesn't do us any good. We have to live it. My most recent teacher about the power of the present moment was a patient that I met at Johnson City Medical Center as I was working as a chaplain. The list of her physical challenges was long, and she had endured several tragedies in her life. And yet she consistently had a smile for the people who came her way and was always talking about what made her grateful. It mystified me how she could be so positive. And when I asked her how she kept her spirits up, this is what she told me. She said, I'm not living one day at a time. I'm living 1 minute at a time. If I had to wait for a good day, I will never get there. If I'm looking for a good minute, I can be confident that I will have a good minute at least some of the time. Every good minute is an opportunity for gratitude. And I've got to tell you, when someone is telling you this from the intensive care unit with a smile in her eyes, then it carries a lot more weight. As we go from this place today, let's look for the powerful minutes, the pleasure-filled minutes, and the peaceful minutes, and give thanks.
And now we have a special treat for the children and for those of us who are young at heart. Tiffany is going to tell us a story.
So I love stories. I think a sermon is a great way to talk about what it means to be you, but sometimes we need a story and it helps us think about it at a different level. So this is for the young folks, but it's also for all of us big kids in the congregation, of which I am one. So once there was a witch that lived up in the Appalachian Mountains. And this wasn't a mean witch. This was a good witch who made people feel better with her tea and always seemed to know when it rained. And so she decided that it was time to teach her 3 daughters the ways of magic. And so after many years of training, she said, okay, I think they're ready. I think they're ready to be tested. So she invites her first daughter into the room, and there's a lit candle on a table. And she says, okay, my dear, you've studied long and hard, and now it's time to see what you can do. Your test is to extinguish this flame. And so she thinks real hard, and she decides that she's going to call upon the element of water. And a great big rainstorm happens in the room, and it extinguishes the candle, but everything is soaking wet. And so she kind of wrings out her hair and says, okay, thank you, my dear. You may go and call your sister in. So she relights the candle. Second daughter comes in, and she says, all right, my dear, it's time for your test. Please extinguish this candle. And so the second daughter thinks long and hard about how she's going to do this, and she decides to call upon the element of air. And a great big windstorm happens in the room. Papers are flying everywhere. Tea is flying everywhere. And at the end of it, the candle is extinguished. And the witch's hair is more messed up than it normally is, and the papers are all in disarray, but the candle is extinguished, and she says, thank you, my dear, for showing me what you've done, and you can go and call your other sister in. So the third sister comes in. The witch relights the candle, and she says, okay, my dear, it is time to show me what you can do. Your test is to extinguish this candle. And the third daughter thinks really, really hard. She looks at the candle. She looks around the room, and she says, okay, and blows out the candle. And her mother says, very good, my dear. You have learned the ways of magic. So, my question for you all, and for you all, is what happened? What was that story about? Does anyone have any thoughts?
Simplicity.
Simplicity. Right. We have these intentions, we have these ideas, and it's a great gift when we don't overcomplicate it, right? The power is in our intention. Thank you so much for letting me share this story with you all. And I will talk to the big folks a little later about the power of the present moment.